Family said I was selfish for not lending money again. "You're clearly not even struggling," my sister said. I just smiled, and months later they were furious when I remember standing there, coffee cup in hand, when Rachel, my sister, threw those words at me across the kitchen like they were knives. "You're clearly not even struggling," she sneered, with that look she always wore when she thought she was winning. "You're selfish." The words hit me harder than I expected. Not because they hurt, but because they didn't. Not anymore. I just smiled at her. A small, knowing smile that she didn't understand, and probably never would. Because in that moment, something inside me finally shifted. Something that had been stuck for years, years of carrying their problems on my back, cracked and fell away like an old shell. I realized, standing there in my own kitchen, that it had never really been about love. Or respect. Or even family. It was about what they could get from me. And they thought they were entitled to it. It wasn't always like that, at least I didn't think so. Growing up, I was the oldest, the responsible one. The one who always understood why things were unfair, why there was never enough money, why sometimes Christmas came without gifts. I took care of my siblings. I helped my parents when jobs were lost or bad decisions caught up with them. At first, I told myself it was normal. It's just what you do when you're family. But over the years, the requests turned into expectations. The expectations into demands. Car repairs, rent money, bailouts for botched business ideas, emergencies, that somehow always seemed to happen right after a new shopping spree or vacation. And every time they called, every time they hinted and guilt and leaned on me, I gave. I gave until my dreams became afterthoughts. Until my bank account was a balancing act of survival, and my own goals, buying a home, starting my own business, maybe traveling somewhere just for me, were pushed further and further into a future that never came. And they never asked how I was doing. Never once. It had always been, "You're doing fine. You don't need it as much as we do. You're lucky." That day in the kitchen was the first time I let the truth fully settle. They didn't love me. They loved what I could give them. I smiled wider at Rachel, set my coffee down on the counter, and wiped my hands on a towel like I had all the time in the world. Inside, I was already making plans. Plans she couldn't even imagine. Plans to disappear. The thing about hindsight is, once you see the cracks, you realize they were always there. I started noticing little things right after that kitchen moment. Tiny, stupid things, really, but once I saw them, I couldn't unsee them. Rachel didn't just believe she deserved my help, she expected it like it was part of her birthright. 2 days after our argument, she sent me a text. No apology. No conversation. Just, "Hey, can you help me cover the electric bill? It's like $280. I'll pay you back, I promise." I stared at it for a long time. Not angry. Not sad. Just hollow. There was no please. No thank you. It didn't even cross her mind that I might be struggling too, that maybe I had bills piling up, dreams still gasping for air somewhere in a box marked "Someday." It wasn't just Rachel either. The next week, Mom called. At first, it was small talk. Asking about the weather, how work was going. But I knew what was coming. I could hear it creeping up the back of her throat like a bad taste she was trying to swallow. "Your dad and I are a little short this month, you know how it is," she said, letting the sentence trail off like an unfinished sentence was going to fill my wallet. They didn't even pretend anymore. I wasn't a son. I was an investment they thought they owned. And the more I pulled back, the more desperate they got. The compliments stopped. The fake concern vanished. In its place, there was only impatience. Annoyance. As if I was breaking some invisible contract they had written without my consent. One night, scrolling through my sister's social media, I found a new post. Rachel posing at a trendy restaurant with a caption that read, "Self-care night. I deserve it." I recognized the restaurant immediately. Expensive. The kind of place I had never once been able to justify for myself, even on my birthdays. And there she was, smiling under chandeliers, sipping wine that probably cost more than my grocery bill for the month, funded by the very money I had said no to. I sat there in the dark of my apartment, the glow of the screen painting her smug grin across my living room, and something clicked into place. They were never struggling. They were never desperate. They just didn't want to struggle. And I had been the safety net. The silent, smiling ATM. Not anymore. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a pen and a notepad and started writing out a different future. Not one where I kept carrying them. Not one where I waited for scraps of appreciation that would never come. But one where I lived for me. Where I stopped bleeding for people who didn't even notice I was wounded. And for the first time in my life, I felt light. I felt free. It didn't take long for the confrontation to find me. It was a Sunday afternoon when my phone rang, not a call this time, but a full-on family group chat video call. Something they never did unless it was serious. I almost didn't pick up. But some part of me, stubborn curiosity maybe, made me swipe my thumb across the screen. The screen flickered, and there they were, Rachel, Mom, Dad, and even my younger cousin Mason, who had somehow become a regular part of the drama lately, standing awkwardly in the background. Rachel launched right in, no greetings, no build-up. "We need to talk about your attitude." I raised an eyebrow. "My attitude?" Mom jumped in, wringing her hands dramatically like she was auditioning for a soap opera. "We're family, David. Families support each other. You've always understood that." Dad, still staring somewhere off camera like he had better things to do, added without emotion. "You're being selfish. You're not struggling. You just don't want to help anymore." The way he said it, like I had committed some crime against them, made my stomach twist. Rachel folded her arms, her voice sharp and triumphant. "You're hoarding money while we're drowning. And for what? You don't even have kids. You don't have a mortgage. What do you even need it for?" That was it. That was the moment. Something inside me snapped, but not in anger. In certainty. I smiled again, that same small, calm smile from the kitchen weeks earlier. "You're right," I said. Rachel blinked, confused. "What?" "You're right," I repeated, my voice even and cool. "I don't have kids. I don't have a mortgage. I don't have a million bad decisions piling up behind me like a bonfire about to collapse. That's why I'm about to make a life you'll never be part of." The silence was immediate and heavy. Mom sputtered. "David, don't be ridiculous, we're talking about family." "No," I cut in, finally letting my voice sharpen. "You're talking about entitlement. About bleeding me dry because you think I owe you. But I don't. I never did." Rachel's face twisted into something almost ugly. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "Maybe," I said, smiling wider. "But I doubt it." And then I did something none of them saw coming. I ended the call. Just hung up. No dramatic speech, no last look, no goodbye. I stared at my reflection in the black mirror of the phone screen for a moment, heart pounding. And then, a strange, exhilarating calm settled over me. I knew exactly what I had to do next. And for the first time in years, it would be a decision made purely for me. No guilt. No fear. No chains. Just freedom, stretching out in front of me like a road finally cleared after a long, punishing winter. The thing about finally deciding to live for yourself is, it doesn't start with fireworks. It starts with small, quiet things. I didn't slam doors. I didn't post cryptic quotes online. I just got to work. First, I cut contact down to the bare minimum. No more answering calls at midnight. No more bailing anyone out because this time is different. When the messages rolled in, pleading, guilt-tripping, threatening, I barely even read them anymore. One by one, I silenced them. Muted group chats. Blocked certain numbers. Cleared space in my life the way you pull weeds from a garden you forgot was there. Next, I took a long, hard look at my finances. To my surprise, even after years of being their safety net, there was still a flicker of hope there. I wasn't rich. But if I was careful, strategic, I could rebuild. So I did. I picked up extra hours at work. I sold off things I didn't need anymore, things I realized I'd only bought to impress people who never cared. I lived small, packed lunches, cheap rent, no mindless shopping. Every paycheck, a bigger slice went into savings. Every month, a little closer to freedom. I dusted off a dream I'd buried years ago. Moving to Asheville. Small city. Rolling mountains. Coffee shops tucked away on quiet streets. Fresh air that didn't taste like stress and regret. I used to tell myself it wasn't realistic. Too expensive. Too far. Too selfish. But now it felt like destiny calling from the other side of the mountain range. And this time, I wasn't going to ignore it. I started researching in secret. Housing prices. Moving companies. Job markets. I made lists, plans, backups to the plans. And every time Rachel sent another, emergency, Venmo request. Every time Mom tried to guilt me about how lucky I was. Every time Dad muttered about how I thought I was better than them. I smiled to myself. Because they had no idea I was already halfway out the door. Freedom wasn't some distant fantasy anymore. It was a plane ticket, a signed lease, a goodbye that would never be spoken. And it was coming faster than they could imagine. When the day finally came, it didn't feel real at first. I stood there in my tiny apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes, the lease for my new house in Asheville burning a hole in my pocket. No fanfare. No dramatic announcements. Just me, a stack of moving boxes, and the quiet hum of a life about to begin. I sold what I didn't need. Donated clothes, old furniture, anything that carried the stale smell of obligation. The essentials, a few bags, my laptop, a worn leather jacket I loved, came with me. Before I left, I did one last thing. I changed my number. Blocked every family member on social media. Cancelled the shared accounts, closed the doors they used to slip through when they needed something. No forwarding address. No breadcrumbs. I wasn't leaving a trail. I was erasing it. When I finally zipped the last suitcase and looked around that empty room, I smiled. Not a sad smile. Not a hesitant one. A free one. I locked the door behind me without looking back. Because there was nothing back there worth missing. The drive to Asheville was long, but it didn't feel heavy. It felt like shedding an old skin, mile after mile. The farther I got from the city, from the cluttered suburbs and the suffocating memories, the lighter my chest became. By the time I crossed the state line, it felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. My new house wasn't extravagant, a small, sturdy place on the edge of town, nestled at the foot of the mountains. White shutters, a wide front porch, and a little balcony that overlooked the forest. When I first stepped inside, it smelled like fresh paint and clean air. No ghosts. No old arguments clinging to the walls. Just possibilities. I dropped my bags by the door and wandered from room to room, running my hand along the smooth surfaces, the empty walls that would soon hold pieces of my life, not theirs. Mine. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, I stood on the balcony with a mug of black coffee. The breeze was cool, carrying the earthy scent of pine and distant rain. Below, the town lights flickered on, one by one, like tiny promises that I hadn't ruined everything by choosing myself. For the first time in forever, there was no buzzing phone demanding attention. No guilt clawing at my ribs. No voice whispering that I owed anyone anything. There was just me, the mountains, and the steady, thrilling beat of a life finally unfolding on my own terms. I closed my eyes, letting the moment sink deep into my bones. This wasn't running away. This wasn't abandoning anyone. This was survival. This was peace. This was freedom. And the best part? Nobody even knew I was gone yet. It took about 2 weeks. 2 blissful, silent weeks of settling into my new life, learning the rhythm of the town, the slow mornings, the neighbor who waved every time he walked his dog past my porch. For the first time in years, I slept through the night without waking up in a panic, thinking I'd forgotten some family emergency or overdue favor. And then one evening, just as I was rinsing coffee mugs in the sink, my phone, my brand new, unlisted number, buzzed with a flood of notifications. Not calls. Not texts. Posts. Public posts. Rachel had posted a status on Facebook, her words practically dripping with rage. Funny how some people you thought you could count on just abandon their family when they get a little money. Hope you're proud of yourself, David. Mom chimed in underneath. Family means sacrifice. Guess some people are too selfish to remember that. Even Dad, who barely knew how to use his phone, had managed to leave a bitter comment. We're better off without him. I scrolled through the pile of comments, cousins, family friends, a few random acquaintances who knew nothing about the years of quiet sacrifice. Some pitied them. Some blamed me. But I just smiled. It didn't touch me anymore. Because they weren't talking to me. They were screaming into a void. They couldn't call. They couldn't text. They couldn't reach me. All they could do was throw tantrums online, desperate to shame me back into their web, not realizing, or maybe realizing too late, that I was already too far gone. A few distant relatives, ones I barely knew, messaged me privately. Polite. Curious. Hey, just wanted to check in, everything okay? Your family seems pretty upset. Hope you're doing alright. I didn't reply to any of them. Not because I was cruel. But because I was done explaining myself to people who only noticed my existence when it benefited someone else. I was free now. I wasn't going to waste another second trying to justify it. Later that night, sitting on my new balcony, I sipped a fresh cup of coffee and watched the stars blink alive over the mountains. Somewhere, hundreds of miles away, they were probably still pacing, still plotting, still furious. And here I was, breathing deeper than I ever thought possible. Their anger was just noise carried away by the wind. It couldn't touch me here. Not anymore. By the time the third week rolled around, I knew it was over, truly, completely over. Rachel tried one last time. She created a new Instagram account, obviously fake, pretending to be some random, old friend, just to see what I was up to. The account had no posts, no followers, just a hollow little name and a message. Hey! Missed you. How's life? We should catch up. I didn't even open it. Blocked. Deleted. Gone. Then came the email from my mother. The subject line just said, family. No greeting, no warmth. Just paragraph after paragraph of how I had abandoned my blood. How I was cruel beyond words. How they had sacrificed so much for me over the years. There it was again. That word. Sacrifice. Funny how they used it like it was a shield, when the only sacrifices that ever happened were the ones I made quietly, without fanfare, without strings attached. At the bottom of the email, a final line. You will regret this when you realize no one else will ever care about you the way we did. I stared at it for a long moment. Then, calmly, I deleted it. Blocked the address. Moved on. Because here's what they didn't understand, what they could never understand. I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of staying chained to people who only knew how to love me when I was useful. Now, the only calls I got were from new coworkers inviting me to grab coffee after work. The only texts were from new friends sending pictures of hiking trails or open mic nights. The only emails were about opportunities, adventures, plans that were mine and mine alone. No guilt. No demands. No conditional love dangling just out of reach. I was building something solid, something peaceful, and they had no place in it. They couldn't find me. They couldn't follow me. They couldn't hurt me. Not anymore. The first time I realized I was really free was a random Tuesday morning. The kind of morning that would have usually started with a text from Mom asking for a small favor, or Rachel, just needing a little help this month. Instead, it started with sunlight pouring in through open windows. The smell of fresh coffee filling my little kitchen. The sound of birds, real, actual birds, not the mechanical buzz of an alarm clock telling me I was late for another obligation. I sat at the small table on my balcony, cradling my favorite mug in both hands and just existed. No background anxiety humming under my skin. No dread curling in my stomach, wondering when the next guilt trip would land. For the first time in my adult life, my mind was quiet. And in that quiet, A thought surfaced, gentle, but sharp in its clarity. They never loved you the way you loved them. And it wasn't cruel to accept that. It wasn't betrayal to move forward without them. It was survival. It was healing. I thought about all the birthdays I spent wiring money instead of celebrating. All the nights I stayed late at work, missing out on life, just so they could have another bailout they'd never say thank you for. All the dreams I shelved with a sigh, telling myself, maybe next year. While they lived in the moment, reckless and carefree, because they knew I was there to catch them. And now? Now they were furious. Because they finally felt what I had been feeling for years. Abandoned. Alone. Unimportant. It was never about love. It was about convenience. I was their backup plan. Their security blanket. And when I pulled it away, they weren't hurt because they missed me. They were hurt because they missed what I gave them. I took another slow sip of coffee, watching as the sun burned the mist off the mountains, turning the blue ridges into gold. A breeze lifted the hem of the blanket I had draped over my shoulders. And for the first time, I smiled without bitterness, without sadness, without guilt. It was a small, steady smile. The kind that doesn't need anyone's approval to exist. I had chosen myself. And I would keep choosing myself. Every single day. I stayed there on the balcony as the sky shifted from soft gold to a deeper, richer blue. The world below woke up slowly, without rush, without demands. Just like me. I wrapped both hands around my coffee mug and breathed in the cool, clean air. For once, there was no noise clawing at my mind. No phones buzzing. No guilt hanging over my head like a cloud. Only the quiet certainty that I had made it. That I was here, alive, whole, and finally free. No regrets. No apologies. No chains tying me to a past that never deserved me. I smiled, turned my face to the rising sun, and made myself a simple promise. I will never go back. And I didn't.